a way to actually identify and access an intrinsic field of value that we all have access to actually identify what are the core values, first principles and values of reality, and to actually articulate out of the pocket a new shared grammar of value and reinitiate the play, and reinitiate the game, and reinitiate evolution, and reinitiate the evolution of love, and reinitiate the evolution of consciousness. That's what we're doing. Where are we? We're in one mountain. We're in one mountain. One mountain, many paths. We've made a decision. This is we're almost at 400th week. I started One Mountain with my dear, beloved, evolutionary wholemate and friend, Barbara Marx Hubbard, when she was about, 84, 85. And our vision was, and our vision of all of us here together, was that One Mountain becomes the seed of the revolution. And the revolution means that we actually recognize this unique moment in time. We recognize that we are at a time between worlds, and we're at a time between stories, and that we need to respond in this time between worlds to a meta crisis that threatens us with both existential and catastrophic risk of two kinds. One, the death of humanity, potential extinction, but equally the death of our humanity. We talked about this on the first day of Mystery School, and we've talked about it here many times. And actually on the One Mountain site, Krista, correct me if I'm wrong, Elena and I actually edited together a piece called Love or Die. Maybe we can even put it in the chat box. I think it's just helpful for people to kind of have that context. That's the context of this conversation. And if we don't have it for this week, we'll put it in the chat box next week. But it's a piece called Love or Die, because at this moment in history, we are at a moment of love or die. We're at our moment of love or die. That's actually where we are. And love means not just ordinary love. It's actually a realization about the nature of love, about reality being Eros, and about us participating in the field of Eros. And it's about invoking a new human and a new humanity, what we call homo amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapien. And the premise of One Mountain is that telling the new story of value, rooted in first principles and first values, that telling this new story, not just a new story, but a new story of value, rooted in first principles and first values, right, is the most compelling response we have to the meta crisis. And so we're here every week engaging in some dimension of that new story. And at the Mystery School, we engaged in dimensions of that new story. And both the Mystery School and One Mountain are in some sense Dharma laboratories that allow us to articulate the new story, to clarify it, and to participate in writing it. And I think that the greatest moral imperative of our time is both the articulation, the precise articulation, the formulation, and then the writing, but not just writing, right? It needs to be a movie. So I'm looking for a partner now, right, to make a movie on homo amor. Now, what's the movie about the new human and the new humanity? What does that look like? What's the movie about evolution of love? So the great library is volumes. Volumes are critical, mini volumes, big volumes, small volumes, essays. I've written to date about 20 unpublished volumes. I'm working day and night on this, right? And I'm fighting for every second of time. So we're fighting for every second of time because it matters so enormously much. We have to write this new story, tell this new story, but even more than that, right? We have to actually become this new story. We have to become the new story. And so every week, that's what we engage in. And we do it in this context, not of a kind of classical podcast, but of the context of a synagogue, a church, a mosque, a synagogue, a secular humanist center. We're gathering, right? The gathering matters, the communion matters. We're gathering in intimate communion, where we're gathering around the campfire. We're gathering to make this real. We're gathering to look at each other and initiate this revolution together. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, we got a wild day today. So let me just give you, if I can, just a little bit of the context. I'm not going to give you all of the context because some of it has to remain mystery, but I'll give you this much if that works for everyone. Okay, we ready? Do we have a drum roll? Do we have a drum roll? Right? What's our question? Are we ready? to participate in the evolution of love? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to participate in the evolution of love? Drumroll, let us do this. Let us fuck this open. Let us, excuse me, love this open. I apologize. I have an agreement with my dear friend Oriana in One Mountain. We use the word love this open. Okay, let's love this open. Let's love this open all the way. Okay, we ready? Okay, so here we go. We got a lot to do here. It's wild. So here's the context. I did a late night, like midnight, Holy of Holies with someone, which is a good time for me to do Holy of Holies. Like 8 or 9 at night, or because it's after the time when I can actually write. And so I did a late night Holy of Holies with a dear friend who shall remain nameless, and I didn't press record. So I felt bad about that. He's a close, dear, friend. We call each other Brother King. And I didn't get to press record, and I wanted to kind of recapitulate these ideas. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to come to One Mountain, which I wanted to come to this week. I wanted to be here this week with you right after the festival. And I said, let me just share these basic ideas in One Mountain. And so I'm going to be recapitulating some ideas that I formulated, this week in a late night Holy of Holies. So that's number one. That's first piece of information. And I do have a partial hidden agenda that I'm doing this for you, and also for my friend, so that he can get this basic set of ideas. So that's one. That's just a little sharing my little dark hidden agenda there. Not so dark, but hidden. Here's the second thing. So I don't know anything about the world of sports. It's never been, it's not my world. I happen to love to play. I was actually in grade school. I was what's it called? The wide receiver. I was a very good wide receiver in football, but I don't know anything about football. As a matter of fact, I've seen one football game in my life up to a week ago, right? I've seen one football game, and I lived in Columbus, Ohio at the time, and Ohio State University. And for the Europeans, I apologize for this, American reference, but Ohio State University, OSU, Woody Hayes, I believe, was the coach, and Rex Kern was the running back, and Jim, he was from Ohio State University, and Jim Plunkett was the quarterback from USC, and it was a Rose Bowl. It was a Rose Bowl. It's like which I remember back. That was a big football game, and it was like a big moment. And who was going to win and who was going to lose was like this very dramatic moment in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm watching it again. I'm saying, what is this? Like men bashing each other around, right, at great risk to concussion. Like, why are we doing this? And the game didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I never really looked at it again. I never really turned back to it. Now, I had occasion, and I'm going to leave this in mystery. Every truth has its temple, and every mystery has its place of revelation. So I'm not going to reveal this thing, not because it's a deep, dark secret. It's actually just private at this moment. At some moment, I'm sure it'll become public. But there's a reason why I got a little bit interested in football again, a couple of months back. And particularly, someone mentioned to me a player named Aaron Rodgers. And, I thought he was kind of a unique figure, a kind of unique player. And for a series of reasons, again, which shall remain mysterious, right, in this public conversation, but for a series of reasons, I thought, wow, he is an interesting figure. Just, he seems to be doing something different. Now, I'd never heard his name, right? Because I've never looked at football since then, and I haven't been drawn towards football. But, I said, okay, I happened to be here, and it was late night here a few days back. And, someone said to me, the same person who had mentioned Aaron to me, said, oh, he's playing his first pre-game. I said, okay, I'll check it out. So it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and I can't really sleep because these couple of weeks are kind of an intense time. So I'm a little bit awake. And so I go online and I do a little Google search, and I pull up, Aaron Rodgers, his first pregame. Now, just again, everything I'm about to share with you are words that I didn't know before. So this is all but this has been my 2 a.m. So I'm welcome to my 2 a.m. So I'm using words that I don't have full association of their full depth of their meaning, but I think I can get it right. So he's doing what's called a pregame, right? He's now been traded from the Green Bay Packers to the Jets. And by the way, this is all about responding to the meta crisis. So stick with us, friends. Okay. So Aaron's been traded from Green Bay to the New York Jets, which is apparently a big deal because, Green Bay is a little town and, New York's New York. And he's having an exciting time from what my friend reported to me. And I guess it's in the public press, which I don't follow, having a good time in New York. He's having a pregame. And I thought, oh, let me check this out. My friend says he's a kind of unique figure. So I check it out and you can Google and say kind of all of Aaron's snaps in the first game. Now, aren't you impressed, all you football people, that I said all of Aaron's snaps? So I just looked up snaps. Okay, good. So snaps means all the time that he played the ball. And he's now the new quarterback for the Jets. Snaps. Pretty impressive, huh? Okay, so I watched his snaps, and there weren't that many. And he actually threw an incredible, what's called a touchdown pass. I got that, I think, touchdown pass. I'm watching, and I notice at third and 12, right, which is how they mark before the touchdown pass at 3rd and 12, I notice, that's so interesting. He just did something really interesting. So what did he do? So everyone is kind of pressing around him, and he stepped out of what's called the pocket. Now, the pocket, new word I've also learned in the last few days, the pocket is where you're defended by your sumo wrestler offensive, linemen, who are these like knights, right, who protect, right, the quarterback who's the king. Does that make sense? So they're protecting you. So you basically play within the pocket. You throw from the pocket. They're protecting you so that you got plenty of time that you can throw. So I noticed, right, 3rd and 12, they're coming at Aaron. His pocket collapses and he steps out looking for a place to make a move. I said, that's interesting. So we're now about 2:30 a.m. And I say, now nothing happened much in that play, but I'm thinking that was interesting. That was moving to me. So about 2:30 a.m., I Google and I say, all right, give me this dude, Aaron Rodgers, right? This guy I've never heard of. My friend mentioned him a couple of weeks back, a few months back, whatever it was. Let me check out his plays. So I Google, Aaron Rodgers' best plays. All right. Okay. You know what I mean? That's cool. So this thing comes up, and the name of the what do you call it? The name of the little video that comes up says not Aaron Rodgers' best plays, it says Aaron Rodgers' miraculous plays. So I want to kind of catch that in the chat box. Let's write that down for a second. Aaron Rodgers' miraculous plays. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Why miraculous plays? So that I just noted that because I'm a reader of text. Okay. So I watched these plays and I was like, wild. And I'm going to show you a couple of them in a second. Okay. But first, let me just kind of give you the overall. All right. I watched these plays and here's what I seem to notice. What I seem to notice is that in 2/3, maybe even 2/3 or more, right, of these plays, his pocket collapses. And then he steps out of the pocket. He doesn't collapse with the pocket, and he expands the play. All right, he extends the play. So the pocket collapses means that he's surrounded by his offensive linemen, but it collapses, right? They're not protecting him anymore. He's about to get tackled, but instead of getting tackled, right, and the play should be over, play over. Pocket has collapsed. The pocket is the place from which the quarterback throws, right? The pocket's collapsed, right? But instead of the play being over, he somehow steps out of the pocket. And again, these are new words that I've used, that I've learned, right? So the play's not over, and he expands the field of play, right? And I looked it up, right? Just actually yesterday, is there a more formal term for it? He extends the play. Now that's really interesting. He's extended the play by 2 or 3 seconds. And then on most of these miraculous plays, it's in that moment of extending the play that a new possibility is created. Cool. I said, wow, that's interesting. So there's this pocket, which is this, right? This kind of comfortable, not that comfortable, but it's a place where there's some certainty, where you're protected, where you can kind of operate from within, but the pocket collapses. But instead of the game being over when the pocket collapses, right, he steps out of the pocket and generates new possibility. That's interesting. But then I said to myself, well, Mark, this is the first football you've ever watched, other than that one game when you were a kid in Columbus, Ohio. You know nothing about football. I mean, you may be and I, did give myself some compliments at 2:30 a.m. because it was late. You may be this, that, and the other, but Jack, whatever about football. So, you think you see a pattern here, but you're just making it up. So then I thought, okay, so what I have to do, I've got to do the same thing you always do with a text. You got to compare texts. That's what you always do, right? And when you analyze a Aramaic text, or you analyze a legal text, or you analyze, as I often do with my friend Aubrey, right, the text of a movie, which I did in our television show in the Middle East that we did this, great national television show, which kind of went crazy in the country, right? And we would analyze texts of movies. So to analyze a text, you've got to analyze parallel texts and see how they relate to each other. So for example, I'll just give you one example, which we're not going to do now. So at some point, I analyzed, okay, what's the first meeting scene, first sex scene, and death scene in Love Story, the great 1970 love classic, and in the 1999 Lana Wachowski, my friend Lana Wachowski movie, The Matrix. So I analyzed the first meeting scene in both movies, the first sex scene in both movies, and the death scene in both movies, because that's what you have to do, right? You have to analyze and compare the sets of text to see is something unique, is something happening. So that means in order for me to see if Aaron's stuff is this like for real? So what I have to do is I have to check another text. The only problem is I know nothing about texts of football. I don't know anything about football. So I remembered somebody who shall remain mysterious as well, but somebody mentioned to me, this name, Tom Brady. I said, okay, cool. And that name I had vaguely heard because Trump likes Tom Brady. So I had some vague sense that this dude exists. No offense, Tom. All good. Like, you're a good man. All good. Right. So I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Now we're about 3 a.m. Everybody with me? 3 a.m. I'm saying, okay, all right, this is cool. This is cool. So I'm going to Google Tom Brady's best plays. And there we are. Tom Brady's best plays come up. Now, interestingly, this is really cool. It doesn't say by Tom Brady miraculous plays. Isn't that interesting? It just says greatest plays or something like that. So I watch his plays. Now, here's what happens. And I'm going to show you, we're going to do about a minute of each of these clips that I watched. Okay. This is really interesting. Okay. So here's what happens, guys. Okay. Let's stay close. So Tom Brady always, without fail, I mean, virtually always, I would say, 90% of the time, 95%, right? What happens is he throws from within the pocket. He doesn't step out of the pocket. If the pocket collapses with Tom Brady, the play's over. Does everyone get what I'm saying? Play's over. So Tom is throwing, and Tom's, I did obviously some research. It's now about 3:45 a.m., right? So Tom, right, he's like one of the top quarterbacks like ever. But when his pocket collapses, when his offensive lineman can't defend him anymore, wow, play's over, gone, done. Aaron, when it looks like the play's over because the pocket is collapsing, he finds his way out. The formal term, I think, is he scrambles out of the pocket. He expands or extends the play for, not a lot of time. I watched a bunch of these, 2 or 3 seconds, 4 at the most, but that's a lot. And then something unimaginable happens. Like, wow, right? That's when new possibilities created. Now that's pretty wild. Now, first of all, I just want you to see this, and then we're going to talk about why this is important, because actually that's exactly what we're doing here at One Mountain. But I want to go like kind of crazy deep into this. This is wildly beautiful. So what I want to do now is we're going to see about first, and Krista, you've got the times. Okay. So I want to first look at Tom Brady. We're going to look at a clip of Tom Brady. Okay. We're going to start a couple of seconds before the clips I want you to see, but I want you to see a couple of plays. You got the times, Krista? Are we good? Okay. David's playing our clips. Yay, David. David rocked my world. So let's do Tom Brady first, and then we'll do Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Okay. Now just watch for a second. You notice each time, everyone get this? Each time he says, remember when he says, he's got the time? Who caught that? He's got the time? What does it mean he's got the time? meaning he's in the pocket. They're defending him, right? They're surrounding him. He's got time. He's good, right? And if you notice, just tell me who's getting this. He always is making the play from within the pocket, right? He's surrounded. He sees the field. Clearly, he's crazy talented. I mean, I've obviously taught him everything he knows about football, but we kind of keep that quiet, right? He makes the pass. He's making the play in the pocket. So just give me a yes if you're getting what I'm saying, right? It's in the pocket. It's happening in the pocket. Everyone get that? Okay, now watch this for a second, okay? Now, let's go to just again, a short clip. Let's look at Aaron. Could you guys get this? Now, who got the difference there? Who got the difference? Okay. Now, I'm going to explain what we're seeing. Okay. So everyone get the difference? So in each one of those pieces, right, we just saw a couple of plays, but we're watching the pocket collapses. The pocket collapses. That's why the announcer says, what does the announcer say? He's in trouble. Who caught that when he says he's in trouble? He's in trouble means what he's in trouble means? The pocket collapsed. Right? That's the point. The pocket collapsed, right? And then he makes a move in both of the plays. He makes a move. He steps out of the pocket, and then new possibility is created. And even the sportscasters he says this funny thing. He says, right? He backpedals, rolls away, says a prayer, right? In other words, there's this sense, right? That something else has happened here. Do you get this, everybody? Now, who notes the difference? Okay. Does everyone note the difference? Can you see the difference between? Now, I could go through like many more of these, but who just got the difference? Now, I actually went through, and we're now at about 3:30 a.m., and I've now gone through, right? Totally different. It's completely different styles of play, right? In some sense, Brady is playing from the pocket, and he's obviously this brilliant quarterback, right? Playing, right, from within the pocket, right? Big deal, right? But the difference is, right, is that Rodgers, right, when the play's supposed to be over, because the pocket has collapsed, he moves out of the pocket, extends the play, generates new possibility. Okay, who's got that? Everybody got that? Okay, so now we're going to play. Okay, now we're going to play. I want you to kind of feel into that, think about that, okay? Feel into that, think about that. Okay, here we go. We ready? Do we have a drum roll? Do we have a drum roll? Do we have a drum roll? Do we? Okay, so here we go. We're going to look. We're gonna do the code at the very end. We're gonna read it, but right now I'm gonna just kind of talk about what we just saw and how we're gonna play. Okay, so we're in this moment of metacrisis. The key to this moment of metacrisis, right? The key structural root cause generator function disaster. Now stay real close, everybody. Okay, now come from the chat box into center. Let's go into center. So we have this metacrisis. This metacrisis of kind of a system collapses. The generator functions of the metacrisis. When I say generator functions, I mean, let's look beneath the headlines, beneath everything you see written out there, and identify underlying generator functions. And we've been working on this, thinking about this and feeling into this in many different ways for the last decade. Myself, Barb Marks Hubbard, and those of us deep in this work. And when you see two generator functions, stay close, everybody, okay? Generator function one, and now I'm going to ask everyone, come from the chat box into center. First generator function, that there's actually a broken story, and that story is a success story. The success story is that I'm always in rivalrous conflict with everyone else, and that rivalrous conflict is governed by win-lose metrics. That's one. That then generates a fragile system when the parts don't know what each other are doing, which makes the entire system liable to systemic breakdown on multiple levels. See, for example, COVID, which was just this minor dress rehearsal for systemic breakdown. Okay, now what's the underlying? So those are the two generator functions that we've identified, and we've written extensively about this, and we're publishing a major book, right, in somewhere around the winter called the Homo Amor Manifesto. And the first half of it identifies these generator functions in a very clear way. And we're doing, in Zohar, you and I are working on this deeply, and together with my brother, Zach Stein, right, we're publishing actually 5 or 6 volumes about the universal love story. And the first volume is about really identifying and understanding these generator functions and how they work. Okay, that's one. Everybody with me? Chat box. Now, are we in the chat box? Everyone got that? So far, good? Everyone's got that? Stay close. Now, underlying, we talked about this at the mystery school, underlying these generator functions, there's a deeper root cause. The root cause is there's a global intimacy disorder. What's the global intimacy disorder? Well, no one's intimate with each other. There's no shared identity between people. We can't feel each other. We don't have shared identity. We don't recognize each other. We don't have shared purpose, because that's what those are the dimensions of intimacy. Why? And of course, bracket before the why. And that causes, the result of that is that our relationship is not intimate, not shared identity, but rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, which creates a fragile system, which is the generator function of breakdown of the entire system, right? A world civilization which hasn't solved any of the old problems with exponential technologies, which cascades and breaks down. Right? The exponential growth curves go off the cliff and the entire system breaks down, which is where we're going on multiple levels. So stay close. So why is there a global intimacy disorder? Because there's no shared story. No shared story of what? There's no shared story of value. There's no shared story of value. So instead of a shared story of value, there's a success story. Does everyone get that? And so when there's no shared story of value, which is a story of Eros, there's pseudo-Eros, there's a success story, there's rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. Okay, that's just the context. I'm just setting the context. There's a lot of, we could talk about that for 10 hours, but that's just the context. But here's where it gets wild. And this is going to bring us to Aaron and Tom. Why is there no story of value? Friends, because the assumption is that the field of value has broken down. The reason there's no story of value is because the field of value has broken down. The assumption is there's no longer a field of value. And why is that the assumption? Because there's actually been a fierce critique of value theory, which is actually a valid critique. Okay? Now stay close with me. I'm going to get to what that critique is in a second. But I want to go kind of a little earlier. So in the pre-modern world, so we're going to get to what the critique of value theory is, which is actually a valid and important critique, which has actually destroyed the field of value. Because there's no field of value, there's no global intimacy. Because there's a global intimacy disorder, which is the root cause for the generator functions of existential risk. Okay, so everyone got this? Okay, now it's very powerful. It's very beautiful. We're cutting through an enormous amount of confusion to try and get to really understand deeply what's happening here, because only if we can understand that can we actually act in revolution and actually act in transformation and actually participate in evolving the source code and actually participate in evolution of love and the evolution of love. So here we go. So if you go back to pre-modernity, so pre-modernity, at the pre-modern world of the great religions, the great traditions until the Renaissance, they all assumed that there was a field of value, and they all assumed that they owned the field of value, right? So they all assumed everybody else's understanding of value is wrong. Mine is fundamentally right. My God, my interpretation of the field of value is correct. But what they all shared is they all thought, well, value is real. Value is intrinsic. Value is intrinsic to cosmos. Value is intrinsic to the divine field. There is absolutely what I'm calling a field of value, a ground of value. They just thought about who owned it. Okay. But each one said, wow, we got total certainty. We know what's going on here. And their princes and their dukes defended them. So they were in the pocket. Does everyone get that? They were in the pocket. Do you get what I mean by that? In other words, they're defended by all their dogmas, right, and all their theologies and in all their institutions. And they're acting and they're trying to move the play forward in accordance with their vision of the field of value. And they're taking on the other team and they're doing this line drive, right? But they experience themselves as being in the pocket, as being defended. And they're acting and moving from within the pocket. Everyone get what I'm saying? Who gets what I'm saying? Who gets that? Who gets that? Show of hands. Okay, everyone get that? They're operating from within the pocket. Now, stay close. It gets wild. Modernity comes along. Modernity says, whoa, man, yeah, no, we don't like that pre-modern stuff, right? Like that's bad stuff. And they rebel against modernity, against pre-modernity for good reason. Voltaire leads the charge and he says, remember the cruelties. Good reason. There's good reason to rebel against pre-modernity. So modernity takes on pre-modernity, at least in its mainstream position, David Hume. And they undermine the dogmatic assumptions of pre-modernity, but they do this other thing. They take out a hidden loan from pre-modernity, a hidden social spiritual loan. They borrow social spiritual capital from pre-modernity. Modernity does this. In what form? What's the currency of that social and spiritual capital? Value. See, modernity has no way to actually work out where's value from now. It's not from God in the way we thought it was, right? Where's it from? And all the suppositions that reason could get us there are destroyed by, at least in their classical sense, by David Hume and followed by Immanuel Kant. So where do we get value from? So what modernity says is, take, for example, the American Constitution. When it talks about value, it says something like, we hold these truths to be self-evident. What does that mean? We hold these truths to be self-evident means we're not sure where value's from, but we're taking out a hidden loan of social and spiritual capital from pre-modernity. We're just going to assume value. We're just going to say value is real. And we're just going to live our lives as if value is real. And we're not going to try and work out where it's from. We don't know, but hey, we're just going to hold these truths to be self-evident. Value is real. We've taken out a hidden loan from pre-modernity. It's a hidden loan of value. We're just going to assume value is real, even though we don't know where it's from. Everyone with me so far? Who's with me? Stay close. Stay close. You with me? We're doing like a deep dive here, okay? So that means that modernity, stay close, friends. That means that modernity is still in the pocket. Modernity is taking out a loan, social spiritual capital from pre-modernity. We're in the pocket, right, Lisa? We're in the pocket, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident. All good. We're in the pocket. It's clear, self-evident. Whoa, that's a big deal. Along comes post-modernity. And post-modernity says, I'm calling that loan modernity that you took from pre-modernity, that loan of value, you are full of shit. Value's got no source. Value is not real. All values are made up. All values are relative. All values are, stay close, socially constructed. All values are, as one popular writer said in a book endorsed by Barack Obama and Bill Gates and everyone else's brother and sister, right? All values are just mere fictions, mere social constructs, mere figments of our imagination. Wow. It's all made up. Now, if it's all made up, whoa, it's all made up. So what does that mean? So what that means is that actually the pocket collapsed, right? The pocket, the protected pocket, that place of certainty where I could actually rest and from which I could throw in complete passes and move down the line, the pocket collapsed. Does everyone get that? Pocket collapsed. It's not just the pocket collapsed. Stay close. The game got canceled. Does everyone get that? The pocket collapsed and the game got canceled. There's no more game. Game means you're on the field. And the field means there's a shared field of value. That's the great thing of sports. You're on the field, there's a shared field of value. No. The pocket collapsed and the game is canceled. There is no longer a game in a field of value. What remains in its stead, my friends? What remains in its stead? One thing. Rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, a success story, a rivalrous conflict, win-lose metrics all the way up and all the way down in every part and dimension of society, right? Which creates extraction models. Rivalrous conflict creates exponential growth curves. It creates fractional reserve banking, right? At its most pernicious, it creates structures of economics and finance, which are devastating, right? To the commons and the tragedies of the commons and the multipolar traps, right? Because we're not in the field of value anymore. That's the exact point. There's no more shared field of value. Even when we recognize that artificial intelligence, for example, right, threatens us at the most existential level, existential risk, the ability to actually create a shared agreement to limit, formally define the parameters of what's going to be allowed or not allowed in artificial intelligence research our ability to create that shared agreement is nil. We can't do it. No one trusts each other because there's no shared field of value in which trust is actually a value. So there's multipolar traps. Everyone says someone else is going to break the agreement and do it, so I better break the agreement first. So we've got this existential risk, right? Artificial intelligence, and no one, literally no one whatsoever. It's kind of wild, right? Kind of complete, totally wild. No one can actually create an agreement because actually the major players in AI, many of them we're in touch with right now, actually experience their lives as success stories, rivalrous, conflict, win-lose metrics. They're not in the field of value. Wow. Okay. So now what happens, my friends, when certainty collapses? What happens when the pocket collapses? What happens when the game, right, gets canceled? So then you've got to step out of the pocket. You've got to extend the play, right? You can't make the Tom Brady move anymore. For Tom Brady, when the offensive linemen aren't there, when the game collapses, when the play's over, it's over. But from that perspective, it's game over. No, what we're saying is that Aaron's actually doing it right. Aaron's actually stepping out of the pocket intuitively, right? And he's actually creating new possibility. 3-4 seconds, he steps from certainty into uncertainty. And it's lonely out there and it's undefended. It seems to be unprotected. And then you actually create new possibility. And that creates miracles. Creates miracles of emergence. That's what emergence is. Emergence means something new emerges that was never there before. And that's why intuitively they say, and he throws the ball, right? He's stepped out. They don't use these words, but they're describing he's in trouble, meaning the pocket's collapsing. He steps out of the pocket, right? Throws the ball with a prayer. Why are they talking about prayers? Why are they talking about miracles? They sense intuitively, not wild. They sense, right? If you just listen to the language of the sportscasters, and I did this at an hour talking about 3:45 a.m. I just listened to the language of the sportscasters in describing Rodgers' plays and describing Brady's plays. It was a different language. It was a different relationship. Rodgers didn't quite make sense to them. Brady was like, made sense to them. Mainstream guy, he's our man. And Rodgers, they had a more complex relationship with. He's doing something else, right? He's shattering the old certainties. He's creating this new possibility. But here's the story, my friends. God is the possibility of possibility. Aaron's making the God move. That's what he's doing. He's making the God move. He's becoming the evolutionary impulse, right? He's stepping into the unknown, but he's stepping into the cloud of unknowing. He's stepping into this new possibility, right? And God is the possibility of possibility. Wild, isn't it? You begin to see it? Now, stay close, okay? Stay close. Do we have a drum roll? Do we have a drum roll? Do we have a drum roll in the house? Do we have a drum roll in the house? Like, oh my God, we have a drum roll in the house. So the exact move that the center is making, the Center for Integral Wisdom, which we've now renamed at the Center for World Philosophy and Religion, the Eros Mystery School of the Summer, One Mountain, Many Paths, we're stepping out of the pocket into this unknown and generating a new field of value. That's a big deal. Generating a new field of value, which means we got to generate a new story of value. And a new story, right? A new story of value means that there's an actual story. There's a plot line which we can identify. There's a plot line, that plot line, the plot line of reality. There's a story of value, which has plot lines because stories have plot lines. And those plot lines are the field of value itself. In other words, the first principles and first values of reality, we're able to identify a new set of first principles and first values and show that they're not just made up. No, they're not what they thought in pre-modernity. It's not that your God spoke them in one place and you own them, but actually there's a way to actually identify and access an intrinsic field of value that we all have access to actually identify what are the core values, first principles and values of reality, and to actually articulate out of the pocket a new shared grammar of value and reinitiate the play and reinitiate the game and reinitiate evolution and reinitiate the evolution of love and reinitiate the evolution of consciousness. That's what we're doing. Okay, like, wow. Is that like, do we have words for that? Who's got no words for that? I've got no words for that. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, in mid-September, we're going like so deep into this. We're going to take such an incredible ride, an unbelievable ride. And we're going to start with in mid-September. Crystal will give us the exact date. Okay. But we're going to start and we're going to do first, we're going to go to the movie Barbie that we didn't really get to do at Mystery School. We just looked at 2 songs. We're actually going to look at 10 clips from Barbie. And we're going to see how Barbie plays or doesn't play in the field of value. And we're going to look at Oppenheimer. Those are things I promised we would do that we just touched on in the Mystery School, but we're going to do it in a way that we can all access it. And we're going to do this kind of blow away analysis together because culture has completely missed the understanding. There's all this ink spilled on Barbie and Oppenheimer, which actually misses the deep play. So we're actually going to step out of the pocket. We're going to identify what's the deep play here and why does it wildly matter, number one. Number two, we're going to talk about what is this move? What's this Aaron Rodgers-like move? If we can, identify Aaron in that way, which I'm sure he wouldn't mind, right? It's a good reading. What's this move where we step out of the pocket? What's the move we're making? What's the play that we're creating? And I really want to identify that play for you very, very clearly because it's the essence of everything we're doing. So what I want to do here is, okay, what I want to do here, friends, is just for a second, I just want to read the code for this week before we finish. We can put the code, there it is. This is the code for this week, okay? And we wrote this just a second before. And David, maybe you read it for us, okay? David, if you can get it, why don't you give us a reading? Because this code actually summarizes everything we just said. So give it to us slow and just blow us away, David. Take us inside, man. Football.
All right,
Football,
here we go.
Dharma, and the meta crisis.
Football. Pre-modern religion plays the game of God and the game of value within the box, within the pocket. Modernity takes the loan of value and God capital from pre-modernity and plays the game of value and God in the box as well. Post-modernity,
and by in the box, we mean in the pocket.
Yeah. Post-modernity calls in the loan and says, there is no box, there is no pocket, there is no safe place. The game is canceled. All that remains is rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. The moral imperative at this point in history is to step out of the pocket, to step out of the box, and to create a new possibility, to create a new vision of the divine, a new vision of the field of value. Value which is not only eternal value that is unchanging and preordained value in God within the box, but to create evolving value, to realize that there is no contradiction between eternal and evolving. Rather, the eternal Tao is the evolving Tao. Eternity and evolution are paradoxical and not contradictory. We step into the field after the box, the pocket, has collapsed, and generate a new ground, a new field of value, eternal and evolving value. Back to you, Dr. Mark.
Krista, close us up. Love mad, everyone. Oh my God, love mad, crazy, wild, mad.